In this episode, we're going to talk about the physiological side of success in business and the practical things you can do to get more done with less stress, anxiety, and effort. So stay tuned.
If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Olivia Marie, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now, let's get to it with today's guest.
All right, welcome everybody. I am Todd Getz, your host of the Digital Trailblazer podcast, and with me is Olivia Marie. Olivia, welcome. Why don't you give our audience just a quick introduction, let them know who you are and what you do.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having me, Todd. This is going to be a great conversation. As you said, my name is Olivia Marie, and I really help visionary entrepreneurs scaling to 7 and 8 figures really master their nervous system when it comes to holding higher levels of money, of success, of visibility. Because as you know, there are more things that come along with higher levels of success, but that doesn't necessarily have to mean it has to come with stress or burden or pressure and obligation. So I'm really here to alleviate any of that so that the bigger it gets, the higher numbers actually get to feel lighter and more easeful. And it doesn't come at a cost of your health or your relationship, everything outside of your business.
Yeah, and I think this is so important. A lot of entrepreneurs, especially early on, are so focused on the marketing things. What script do I use for sales calls? What script do I use for messaging? What do I say when this happens? What script can I use for this, that, or the other thing? And we're very concerned about templates and the color of your logo or these things that, yeah, they're important. But then when it comes time to implement, you actually get somebody on a sales call. You can be working off the same script as somebody else, and they may be closing at an incredibly high rate. But when you do it and you use the same words, it's not coming across the same. And it's because you've got these butterflies in your stomach. It's because you sound unsure of yourself. It's because when it comes time to drop the price, your palms get sweaty and and it really starts to show. And your nerves just get to you. But it's more than that. It's the other things in your business where your nerves get to you. And so maybe you're keeping yourself busy with things that you're more comfortable with rather than having to tackle a thing that you know you need to do that's in the back of your mind that's just nagging at you, but your nerves are getting to you. So maybe let's start from the beginning. What is this concept that you're talking about? Because I know a lot of people say, okay, well, this is mindset. And it's not necessarily mindset, is it?
Well, I love that you bring all of this up because no, what you said, it's not just mindset because nervous system overrides mindset. And I love that you actually gave the example of two people using the exact same script or the exact same framework, saying the exact same thing. And one person converts, one person lands, and the other person doesn't. And that is a byproduct of your nervous system. What I want everyone to remember is that the nervous system always wins, no matter what. Right? It is a primal response. So mindset tends to be like, think positive. Let me get myself in a good mindset. But if your nervous system isn't on board, you will be kicked out of that great mindset as soon as you're thrown into the fire, right? You can have a good mindset, but then you hop on that sales call and all of a sudden you doubt yourself. You hesitate. Everything you got yourself into went out the window. And so this is where the nervous system is so important because it overrides everything. It overrides mindset. It overrides ambition. It overrides strategy. It overrides how many times you've practiced something, or scripted it in your head that you've practiced for before the sales call or whatever it is you're doing. And so when it comes to nervous system, it is fundamentally the thing that's going to allow you to be more successful because otherwise that primal response will kick in and override how brilliant you are. And even going back to your example, I guarantee You are just as good as Sally or Joe, the person who's converting. And that's where I feel people get so frustrated, is that they know they're as good as other people. They know they're brilliant at what they do. But it's like, oh, my nervous system keeps kicking in. And all of a sudden, I'm not showcasing how brilliant I am. I can't own the room. I can't stand in my power. It's not coming across. But they know that if they were to just get the people in the door, they would kill it, right? If the people were in their program, they get amazing results. And so when we dissolve this barrier with your nervous system, then how brilliant you are at what you do, you actually get paid to match that level, which is ultimately what we all want.
So I know for us, the way that we got over a lot of this is just repetition, just getting on more sales calls, getting used to it, doing more webinars, and basically doing the same thing over and over and over. Just repetition, and eventually you kind of get over it. I'm sure there's got to be other ways to do this, right?
I mean, repetition, sure, will always help. Like if you've never done something before, you jump into the pool, you realize you're going to survive, and then you can jump into the pool again, right? You're not as scared as like the first time you did it. However, if that were true, then the people who've been in business for 5 or 10 years should technically be killing it more than people who are in it for a year. So why is it that some people can walk into the industry with the zero to no experience and in 6 months blow past you? Right. So if that were true, it would have to be true for everyone. So there are 100% things that we can do. And ultimately, it comes down to identifying what are these fears that are operating in your system, right? Because everyone's going to have different fears. Are you fear of being judged? Right? Are you fear of looking stupid, that you're not going to say the right thing? Are you scared that you actually don't know what you're talking about? Are you scared that you have like imposter syndrome? Who am I to do this? What are they going to think of me if I claim this? Oh, if I'm going to sell people into this thing, what if I can't deliver? Right. So it's not even the fear. Some people think they want to make the sale, but then they make it and it's like, oh, well, now I actually have to get the person the result. Can I do that? Will they be disappointed? Will this happen? And so when we start to identify really what are these fears that are really running in your unconscious, right, in that subconscious mind, then we can start to work with those and dissolve them. And then that's when you're going to start to get bigger, better results in your business, because those fears that are jumping in no longer start running the show. Like we were discussing earlier, those are going to override. So your system will always seek to protect you. If it feels like, oh shit, we might be rejected, we might not do this might happen, they might think we are dumb, we are always going to play at a level smaller than we are capable of, which is why it's so important to first identify all of these fears, depending on what fears is coming up for you.
When you just explained all that, one of the things that really stuck out in my mind is when we made that transition from selling low ticket courses to higher ticket coaching. And the fear that I feel like we had was we knew that what we were teaching worked for us, and we knew that would work for other people if they did it, but we weren't necessarily sure that, okay, if they buy and they join, are they actually going to do the things that they're supposed to do, or are they going to flake out and then ask for a refund later? So that was what I would identify as our fear. But would you say that there might be something deeper than that that's probably causing that uncertainty in us?
It's interesting you bring that up. It's a common one too. And immediately that's twofold, right? It's number one, how are we speaking to the people? Maybe we're bringing in people who are not ready to take responsibility, but also where are you taking then responsibility for someone else's behavior, right? Your only job is like, if you give them the course, this is the thing, you follow it, you do the thing, you get the result. But when we have past conditioning or past things that have happened to us where we feel like we need to control or we need to fix or we need to save someone or we need to, because ultimately we want to help people. It's why we do what we do. But when we take responsibility for other people, what that's going to do is that's going to dysregulate your nervous system, because we can't possibly control other people. So when you seek to control other people and you're basing how you feel in your business off of that, you're going to set yourself up for fearing those exact same things, because ultimately we can never control other people. We can only control ourselves. And so once you liberate yourself from that, right, you give the responsibility back to them, you meet your expectations, they meet theirs. Well, then there is no fear of that happening, because you stay free and you stay sovereign. They're like, all right, I've delivered what I came to deliver. I'm not taking responsibility for them. So I feel light, because my job is to show up and do what I need to do. Their job is to show up and do what they need to do.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because the minute you said, it's not your job to save people, I remember our very first coach telling us that as well, because we were starting to generate sales calls. We were talking to these people And I forget what exactly the situation was. I think it was someone who wanted to join, but they didn't have the money. And so we were really trying to work with them. Like we were spending way too much time with this person, trying to just find some way to make this work. And even if they had joined, it's like they had very limited resources. And our coach at the time said exactly that. It's not your job to save everybody. You just got to focus on the people that are ready right now and are ready to go. So that mindset really helped us out at the beginning and really helped to change where we put our focus and helped us to move a lot faster. Now, this also manifests itself in other ways other than just webinars and sales calls and things like that. For example, avoiding certain tasks in your business and maybe occupying your time with busy work. Is that right?
1000%. Because the nervous system is very smart. So it's going to take the easy way out, right? Instead of addressing things that are uncomfortable. It is sometimes easier to tweak a funnel or to redo your branding than it is to look at, maybe I'm not fully confident in this. Maybe I actually have some like deeper inner work to do because it isn't as shiny. Versus when the shiny object is dangled, I'm like, oh, well, maybe if I just tweak this funnel or this branding, or I'll just launch a new offer and like the new offer will solve the problem. But you keep doing that over and over again and you never actually get anywhere because you're not addressing that root thing. So that can be busy work, like distracting yourself with the next shiny object, but it can also be procrastination, right? So when we think about nervous system, we have 4 different responses. We have fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And fawn is that one that doesn't get talked about as much. People think fight or flight, running or being really aggressive. But fawn is that people pleasing. And then freezing is that procrastination where you feel like you almost do nothing. Or maybe you feel so overwhelmed that you're overthinking, right? And we were speaking about this a little bit in the beginning, but it also shows up as you're trying to maybe make a piece of content or you're overthinking on a sales call, but saying the quote unquote right thing. And that ends up paralyzing you and it stops a lot of creativity. It stops you from being in that flow state. And it also stops you from really trusting your authenticity and trusting your power because you're worried about micromanaging to get the sale or make the money or increase your income, not realizing that that's the very thing that's preventing you from reaching that in an easeful, relaxed way. So yes, to the webinars and all of that, but also deeply, you really want to be looking of like, oh, where do I notice I self-sabotage and distract myself by little busy work? Maybe I should do a little this thing. Maybe this is a thing that will solve it instead of looking at, oh, maybe if I had stepped deeper into my power, oh, maybe I realize that this is not actually going to give me an ROI and I need to look at how I'm showing up.
I think back in our business, and there are a lot of times where things get slow. And you're right. We'll look at things and start down a path. And then at some point, we'll realize, wait a minute, this isn't the right thing to do. This isn't really going to solve the real problem. This new offer, this new low ticket thing, or whatever it is. And then we'll have to kind of back up and say, okay, well, where's the real bottleneck? And just think about it more logically and rationally, right? Rather than kind of panic and do something that we're more comfortable with.
I mean, sometimes that is it. Sometimes the answer is a new offer, but you have to ask yourself, am I doing this because I can actually see a gap in my product suite or I can see a gap in the market? Or am I not getting the external validation that I really want right now? Am I not getting the amount of sales or income that I want? So I'm doing this in reaction to that. So like that's a very powerful question everybody can start to ask themselves like as they're listening to this and as they go about their business is what am I doing this from? Am I doing this from, oh, this is actually like a gap in my suite that would help people flow through the system or would help people flow through? Or am I doing this because things feel a little slow and I want a little dopamine hit? Oh, I think this is going to give me a little cash injection. So I'm going to do this. Oh, sales aren't what they want. Let me try tweak the funnel because somehow it must be that. When you have nervous system capacity, right, you don't react to things around you like that. So you're able to stay grounded and neutral. So you're able to hold that space in between, right? That void that everyone goes through at every stage of business. There's always going to be, that void of, okay, the sale hasn't come in yet, or this month is slower than last month, or this quarter is not as big as that one. But when you're able to stay grounded in your nervous system, you're able to actually look at things for the truth of what they are and not make moves in reaction mode that are actually going to slow down your business and slow down your income because you're scattering your energy versus if you were to actually stay with the thing long enough.
Now, I know one of the other things in our business that was difficult to get over was that fear of rejection, that fear of failure, especially when we were doing sales calls or even with the network marketing, calling people up and asking them to check out a presentation. That fear of no, I know, stops a lot of people. I mean, it ends people's businesses because they don't want to hear no more than once. They hear that no the first time and then it's done, right? It's over. Do you have any special ways for people to get over that? Or what would you say for people who are kind of at that stage?
It might be actually not what you expect to hear. You're going to hear no. So fearing that you're going to hear no, you will hear no. But each no does bring you closer to a yes. So rather than being like, oh my God, what if they say no? It's like, I'm going to hear no. Make that inevitable, right? It's that whole what if, right? The fear, whenever we have fear of something, it's like, what if this happens? It's the potential for it to happen. When you remove the potential, because it's going to happen in business, you're going to hear no. Then you don't have to fear it anymore because you know it's inevitable. It's like when it's going to rain. Are you scared that it's going to rain? No, one day it's going to rain. It's not going to be sunny every single day. So like, okay, I'll bring an umbrella. You're like, oh my God, it's going to rain. What am I going to do? I'm just never going to go outside again. It's not like you're never going to sell again. You know it's inevitable. You just pack properly. You bring your umbrella and that's it. And then you go on to the next. And it's really when people make the no mean something deeper than it is. When people hear no, they tend to feel shame or rejection like it's something personal about them. It's really not about you. You could have like the juiciest peach for sale and there'll be someone who doesn't like peaches. But can you imagine you had the juiciest, best peach and then someone who doesn't like peaches says, oh, I don't like that, but they're not even interested in peaches. They're really after oranges. But then when you make that mean something about yourself, and this is where we have to disconnect, especially in business, that it's something to do with you or your offer or your program. Most of the time, it has nothing to do with you. It's about the other person, where they're at, what they're willing to take responsibility for. And especially we're talking about nervous system, right? So often, a lot of the time you hear no is because the person on the other side is actually scared themselves. They're scared of taking the leap. They're scared of putting themselves in the ring. They're scared of doing the thing. It's nothing to do with you. It's their own stuff that they've got going on. And so really when you realize it's inevitable, you're going to hear no in your life. I loved the story of J.K. Rowling, who I forget how many times, I think it was like 30 times she heard no. Can you imagine if J.K. Rowling stopped because she heard no the first time? We wouldn't have Harry Potter. So you're going to hear no, but B, it's also not about you. And this is when you really root into like what you're doing and you realize you can be the juiciest peach and someone won't like peaches. Then you're just focused on the people who want peaches. There are people who are waiting, lining up, credit cards in hand, who are looking for the best peach. But if you dim yourself down and you don't really own who you are and your product and your service, whatever it is that you do, and you're not saying like, this is the juiciest peach and you're explaining why, then you're going to lose all those people that you're meant for because you're focusing on the people who are really looking for oranges.
I like that point that you bring up about it could be the other person too who has all these doubts, that's dealing with the anxiety and the fear. And it has nothing to do with you. The analogy that we heard that really stuck with us throughout the years, what is it? A tiger. Imagine a tiger hunting for food. And it goes out and it sees this elk and it goes and tries to kill the elk to feed its family. And the elk gets away. Does a tiger beat itself up over that? Does it say, oh my goodness, I'm a failure as a tiger. I'm never, my family's going to starve, all these things. Does it get depressed about that? Or does it just go out and find another elk? It shakes it off immediately. It doesn't worry about it. And it goes off and it finds another elk. And that's kind of the way that you got to look at business. You're going to have these failures. You're going to have these things that you need to do and you're going to fail at it. And it doesn't matter. You just got to do the thing. Like you said, you're going to hear no. There's a book a while ago that was really popular. I think it was called Go for No. And it was one of the things that a lot of people were talking about. Every no gets you closer to that yes. And that's the way that you got to look at it. And that was one of the other things that we kind of took to heart as well, is that every no that we hear is going to take us closer to yes, because most people are going to say no. There's nobody that bats over 500. Most people on a sales call, they're shooting for 10 or 20% close rate, especially for high ticket stuff. Even when you're selling low ticket stuff, you may look at a 10% conversion rate on a low ticket offer and say, that's pretty good. 90% of people are still saying no to that. So that's what people who have the big 7-8 figure businesses, that's how often they have to hear no to get to a yes. They just do it on a much bigger scale.
Yeah. And they're not getting slowed down by the no's where maybe they second guess and then they go into a shame and then they hesitate and then they stop selling, or they feel like they can't show up and they doubt their message or they doubt their program. I like to say, like, certainty is everything. And just to be honest, like, it's not necessarily the person who's the best at it that makes the most money. It's the person who's the most certain. And I like this analogy. Well, it's not really an analogy, but it's an experience of like, you go to Costco and there's someone selling a Vitamix. There's two different people selling a Vitamix. There's one person who is certain that the Vitamix is like the best thing ever. You need this blender. Look at all it does, right? The certainty behind it is what sells it versus someone selling something else. And that's what you also have to notice, is that it's not always the person who's the best that makes the most money. It's the person who's the most certain behind it. So you better be certain behind what you do, because everyone can feel that certainty. And I'll go to Costco and be like, man, I need another Vitamix. That's the way this person is selling this right now. They got me. But I love that. That's why I love watching how people sell them. Like, oh, because they are so certain and convicted. And that certainty and that conviction really comes from a grounded nervous system, right? It comes from someone who's not second guessing or hesitating or doubting. They know.
So all the stuff that we've been talking about, you've got a system to kind of navigate this whole process, don't you?
Yeah, I would say there's like 4 main steps when it comes to really having a solid nervous system when it comes to your business. And we've touched on each of them briefly, but like, let's really outline them so that they're crystal clear for everybody listening. Number 1, right? You want to identify where are these fears and anxieties that are keeping you from achieving deeper results. So we touched on the fear of rejection or not being good enough. Maybe it's visibility, right? What will people think around me? What will family think? What will friends think? You want to identify kind of all of these fears. And then number 2, we want to really look at where you are still in reaction mode in your business. All right. So we spoke about, all right, where am I reacting to a slow week, making that mean something about me? And then I behave XYZ in my business. Where am I making that no, I'm reacting to that in a certain way? And then I doubt myself. Where, someone didn't sign. Oh, now I'm reacting and maybe I need to lower my prices. Oh, my pricing is too high. That's, the problem. Then you lower your prices, people don't sign up, and then you're resentful and bitter anyways. Or you lower your prices, then you feel like you're resentful because you're delivering for far less than you want to be compensated for. And you still get at capacity, and then you're burnt out because you're over delivering and not charging enough. Right. So there's all these little ways that we can be reacting. So that's number 2. And then number 3, which we haven't really touched on yet, but is a huge one, no matter where you are in business, because this comes up at every level, but really where that lack of trust is contributing to what ifs, right? So it's that feeling like the shoe is going to drop. And this is something that people get stuck in, because it's like, all right, so you start making money, you get some success. Is it going to continue? When is the shoe going to drop? Where's the next part coming from? All right, I made X amount this month. Am I going to make it next month? How am I going to do that again? Right. And so that's where you have a lack of trust in yourself and in your system that's creating this pressure where you feel like it could go away at any second. And, I say something all the time in my world, which is it's not the result that regulates you, which means if you think that, oh, once I'm making X amount, then I'll feel calm, then I'll feel peace, then I'll feel pressure. I will tell you no. It will just magnify 10x whatever you feel, at lower. You feel this way at 10K months, 100K months, it's just going to 10x. You're going to bring all of that emotion, all of that lack of trust, all of that worry, all of that fear with you. Right. And so this is where people can get trapped in thinking, will I be more free when I make more money? And I will say, no, you will feel less free because the stakes are bigger, right? There's more money, there's more responsibility. Perhaps you have a team, then you're responsible for paying a team. You're putting food on their table. There's responsibility just managing more clients, managing more things. So first we look at, those current fears and anxieties. Then we look at, all right, where is that reactivity going on for you right now? We want to break you out of that so that you're not living in reaction mode in your business. All right, then we want to look at 3, where is that lack of trust? Where are you still feeling like the shoe is going to drop, or you're living on edge in those what ifs of what could happen? And all of that is basically making this internal combustion where you feel a lot of pressure. This is also where you see a lot of like high performing people or people who've made a lot of money, burn out, or their health goes in the toilet, or they have to celebrities go into rehab, right? It's all because they can't get the pressure. People who go burn their business to the ground, or they take a sabbatical and all of a sudden they've dropped off social media and they come back 6 months later being like, I had a mental health break, or I had this happen, because their system literally couldn't hold it. which brings me to number 4, right? Which is expanding your capacity. And this is the biggest thing that comes after all of this. And how I really like to explain expanding your capacity when it comes to success and business is, imagine that you go to Starbucks, right? And so your nervous system is like the size of a tall cup at Starbucks. We have tall, we have grande, we have venti. When you're the size of a tall at Starbucks, if you pour too much success in, right, too much coffee, it'll spill, it'll overflow. If you pour too much money, too much success into your nervous system, and it's too small, it's only the size of a tall, all of that overflow feels like overwhelm. And so the nervous system doesn't know the difference between good overflow and bad overflow. If it's overflow, it's overflow. It's automatically going to send danger responses. So it's going to send danger to more money. It's going to send danger to more clients. It's going to send danger to more visibility. And so what we want to do is we want to expand your capacity from a tall to a venti so that when more money comes in, it doesn't feel like, oh no, alarm bells of the system overflowing. And so when we think about, all right, I want to expand my capacity from a tall to a venti. I want to be able to handle more money, more success, more visibility without it feeling like pressure or without it feeling heavy. I want it to feel easeful. I want it to feel light. I want to still be present with my, family, with my kids. I don't want to have like business going in the back of my mind. I want to sleep peacefully through the night. I want to wake up in the morning and not be like, oh my God, what's happening in the business? First, what we have to do is we have to identify, right, all of those things that are taking up space in your cup. And so all of those things that we touched on in terms of the reactivity, the fears, think about all of those little ones as little bits of things that are filling your cup. So you have your cup, it's a tall. We'll pour in, a little bit of fear of anxiety. Oh, a little bit of fear of rejection. Oh, a little bit, what if I can't do it again next month? Oh, a little bit of this. And all of a sudden, the cup is full with all of these things. So we remove all of those and then we expand to a venti, right? So we add all those extra ounces, and we do that by really focusing on exposing your system to more, right? So the easiest way to expand your system is to expose it to bigger things so that it sees that it's safe and that it can survive, right? When you do this, you expand what is called physiologically as your window of tolerance. The issue is most people's window of tolerance is super small. So the smallest thing happens in their business, they get thrown off. They land this big client. Oh no, what am I going to do now? Right? Then the fear, I got to deliver this. And it throws them out of that window. So the more we can actually normalize this to your system, right? The bigger your cup is going to get, the more space you have, the more capacity you have, and the more you're not only going to make more money in your business and be more successful, but you're also going to be able to thrive outside your business. Because I guarantee to everyone listening, they didn't build a business. They didn't become an entrepreneur to feel like a slave inside their business, to feel more pressure than they did maybe if you were ever working a 9 to 5. You came for freedom, yet somehow you traded the time freedom for your own self-induced pressure cooker that you've inhabited in your own mind. So when you do this, right? Yes, the business thrives, but even more so, it's the experience you have in your business, right? I am not interested in just helping you make more money. I want you to make millions and I want it to feel light as a feather, right? I want you to thrive outside of it. And your experience of money gets to be like as good as it feels, as good as, being present with your family, with your kids, and not having everything else run the show.
I think that analogy with the cups is spot on because I think back to when we first went from say 10 to 20,000 a month. And suddenly we were doing 6 figures a month. And then the month after that, it was like multiple 6 figures a month. And scaling that fast and bringing on that many customers and clients into our business, you're right. It just brought on bigger problems. And it was very stressful. I hated my life that first month that we brought in 6 figures. My life was just so stressful dealing with customer service stuff. We weren't prepared for any of it because it was just me and Leah. We had no customers. We had nobody helping us with anything. We had no VAs or anything. So all the customer service was us. All of the tech support was us, all these things. And suddenly just flooded with these, can't log in. I didn't get the email. I want a refund. Oh, now our email service provider is making us do a confirmed opt-in, like a double opt-in because too many people misspelled their emailing addresses that don't exist. And so now we had to deal with that and switch email providers. And then, our Facebook ads account got shut. Just bigger problems, just one after another hit all at the same time. And it was stressful. We were not equipped to deal with it. And I think back to that time, and yeah, it was great to make the money, but having to deal with all that stuff, we didn't have the capacity. And it took time to grow into that, to be able to get back to that place where we could do that again. And so it makes so much sense what you're saying. So this whole process of calming the nervous system, identifying these bottlenecks and these pain points and all that stuff, this is a process I'm sure that people probably want help with. If people want to find you online and connect with you, how can they find you?
Well, the best place to come over is Instagram. I'm just at Keep Up with Liv. But what we're actually going to be giving away in this episode is my regulated CEO audit, which I love it because we all want to be a regulated CEO. And this is incredible because what I do with like my high ticket 7 and 8 figure clients, like one-on-one in proximity, you are getting what I do in seconds, minutes in my brain in this audit, where I'm walking you through how to identify all of these unconscious little leaks in your business so you can start cleaning them up. You can identify the fears. You can break out of the reactivity. You can identify where you're in that bracing for impact. You can expand your nervous system. So we're going to be giving that away to the audience so that they can walk through step by step, identify all of these things so that they are no longer holding them back in their business. And also so that all of the wonderful, incredible work and strategies you're already using start working exponentially better without you having to do more.
Awesome. Thank you so much. The links for all of that will be in our show notes. So be sure to check those out. Olivia, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, Todd.
You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.